I want to start by talking about last night's hearing in Children and Families. In my opinion, it was an absolute travesty of a committee hearing. The Republican Party demonstrated the depths to which they will sink to strip Missourians of their reproductive rights, under the state constitution, no less, even as they struggle to agree how to do it. So for those of you keeping track, what we heard last night was the 5th iteration of an abortion ban. They are continuing to try to repeal Amendment 3 through various means. And in a little over a week, this is the 5th version that we've had. So after allowing testimony from just 10 witnesses, the committee chair shut down testimony. She only allowed opponents to state their name and whether they were for or against the bill. And I've never seen anything like that in my time here. You know, these folks have traveled from all over the state to have their voices heard. This is the people's house. And they came to speak on something they voted on as part of the majority back in November, just 5 months ago. The chair's action was unprecedented, unwarranted, and frankly, it was undemocratic. If the chair of Children and Families is unable to tolerate dissent and allow people to exercise their right to be heard, then I believe she should relinquish her gavel. And if Republicans don't want Missouri citizens packing hearing rooms to defend their constitutional rights, then they shouldn't hold hearings on stripping Missourians of those rights. The language of the Amendment 3 repeal has changed so many times in the last week, like I mentioned, and it's really hard to keep track. But the one thing that has remained consistent is the ballot language that flat out lies to Missouri voters. The very first bullet point of HJR 73 falsely claims that it would guarantee the right to reproductive freedom. In actuality, it would completely repeal Amendment 3 and constitutionally ban abortion in nearly all circumstances. That would be like guaranteeing gun rights by repealing the Second Amendment and replacing it with a blanket prohibition on possessing firearms. I don't think that would fly in this body. So not only are Republicans abusing their authority and to silence the voices of their fellow citizens, they also know they have zero chance of convincing Missouri voters to vote for this provision without a little ballot candy, without something to sweeten the deal for Missouri voters. They are once again sinking to deception and outright lies just to pass their their priority on abortion. Beyond that, we had a very busy week this week. I'll touch on a few of the bigger items, one of them being VLTs, video lottery terminals. It was probably the biggest drama in the House this week with the passage of HB 970 to regulate video lottery terminals. It was clearly not a partisan issue for those who saw where the votes came down. Democrats and Republicans on both sides of the issue had concerns and support. But it cleared the House with just one vote to spare, and to me that makes it pretty clear that it's going to have an impossible journey in the Senate. So I would say that the final passage is uncertain at best. I'm guessing we're gonna do this again next year, and it'll be interesting to see how that process goes. The other big issue this week was guns. The majority party have, again, been working to make Missourians less safe by advancing HB 328, which would legalize carrying concealed weapons on mass transit. Additionally, it would lower the minimum age for getting a concealed carry permit from 19 to 18. That means high school kids could legally carry concealed weapons. What could go wrong with that? That's all I got for y'all today. Happy to take questions.
What did you say to Patterson while the board was open on the lottery vote? You walked up to the dais.
Yeah, so Speaker Patterson called me up to the dais and wanted to discuss what it would take to get some of my members to vote in the affirmative. Unfortunately, he was unwilling to negotiate on my terms and proceeded to negotiate individually with members.
Who did you negotiate with individually?
Hmm?
Who did you negotiate with individually?
I think you can look at who voted how, and you're welcome to ask those members that question.
So you didn't get any concessions from that conversation?
The Democratic Caucus as a whole did not get any concessions.
Okay.
I allow my members to vote their conscience and to vote their district. I don't strong arm my members. I don't whip my members one way or another. If they want to vote a certain way, they're allowed to.
Did you vote no?
I was a no.
Why?
Argosy Casino is a union casino. It's in my Senate district. There are a lot of employees of that casino in my district, and the casinos are very much against this legislation, and I've been a firm no from the beginning, and I will continue to be a firm no.
So regarding the abortion amendment, how Floor Leader Riley was here, and he had a question, or I had a question on one of the provisions, which it says requires parental consent for healthcare issues, and he was unclear if that meant that if someone were to be a victim of incest, that they would have to get permission from like said parent to get an abortion. I guess kind of comments on the lack of clarity on that issue.
I think to me, it reads pretty clearly that if you are a minor, you are a victim of rape and incest, you would need parental permission to receive reproductive health care. To me, that is once again placing some of our most vulnerable Missourians, our children who are being victimized, at great risk, not only physically, but mentally as well. And I think that the lack of clarity on the fifth version of this bill is not surprising. It's not surprising to me that the majority floor leader is unclear about what this bill does, because this is the fifth time we've discussed this. This is the fifth iteration of it in only just a few weeks. They can't come to a consensus on what they think will pass, and they don't even know what's in this version.
Are you anticipating hearing this resolution on the floor next week?
I absolutely am.
So do you expect, I guess, any more changes? Do you feel like this shows that Republicans are at least at a consensus of what they want to put on the floor as far as, I guess that's my question.
Yeah, I have no idea, honestly. I don't know if they are going to have changes on the floor. I don't know if, every time this a version of an abortion ban has moved either through committee, there have been amendments, there have been House committee subs, there have been last-minute amendments, with very little time for public vetting. And of course, after last night, just an unwillingness to allow the public to vet. But every time this has moved to the next step, it hasn't felt finished. So I will be very surprised if this is the final product as it stands.
This is more of a semantics question, but in the most recent version of H.R. 73, is it your understanding that if it passes, it would outright ban abortion, or would it just allow lawmakers to ban it?
It is an abortion ban. It strikes Amendment 3 from the Constitution, which strips Missourians of their right to access reproductive health care.
So we would go back to the 2019 law? Is that, or
With the exceptions for...
Essentially, yes, but it would add in those exceptions for rape and incest. So it would be barely a step above the previous abortion ban that was passed in 2019.
Do you think the legislature is running out of time to address this issue? The fact that we're hearing it in theory on the floor next week, and then it has to get through the Senate with, in theory, then probably 4 weeks left remaining in the legislature.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's indicative of the fact that the majority party still can't come to a consensus on the issue. I hope that that's the case on the other side of the building as well. And I do think that we can learn a lot from the fact that this is moving so late in session, especially because there's a speaker who, right before his own reelection last fall, was very clear that we should respect the will of the voters on this issue.
Do you view the changing vehicles and the changing bill sponsors as a sign of disagreements among Republicans, or is this some kind of broader strategy to cause confusion?
Do I think that the Republicans are playing 4D chess with this bill? Absolutely not. I think that the fact that this is the fifth iteration of this abortion ban is indicative, and this is the, let's see, the third bill sponsor technically, because we went from Stinnett to Lewis and then immediately to Seitz. They do not have their act together on this. I do not believe that there is a larger strategy to, confuse us and make sure that they're keeping us on their toes. I think they're trying to stay on their own toes at this point, and I don't think that there is actual consensus, and I don't think that there's any real plan.
Changing gears briefly, Representative Riley was saying that there are conversations happening about the Chiefs and Royals, but he wasn't ready to share what those are. Are you involved in those conversations, and do you think Missouri is doing enough to keep the teams after the Chiefs? I think it was June 30th, they want to make a decision.
I have not been involved in any of the conversations. I am hopeful that those conversations are happening, but I don't see enough movement from the state right now to keep the Royals and the Chiefs. I don't, and I'm not certain that the leadership in Jackson County is poised to move very quickly on this right now either. So I'm pretty worried about the fate of our professional sports teams.
Is it good government to have all these conversations behind closed doors?
I don't think so. I think transparency, lack of transparency is exactly why the ballot referendum failed in Kansas City. And I think that a lack of transparency could potentially be the demise of saving these professional sports teams.
One more. If the resolution on abortion were to make it through the chamber, do you feel like it's a pretty easy, even if there's ballot candy or language, you think that the messaging is pretty clear as far as an opposition?
Oh, I believe so. I mean, the entire reason that Missourians went to the ballot box and voted for Amendment 3 in November, it was in response to the abortion ban. This is another abortion ban, and I guarantee that folks in Missouri will rise up and make sure they are heard this time, even louder than the last time.
Ma'am, so Senate Bill 4 was signed into law yesterday by Governor Kehoe. There was bipartisan agreement and disagreement in both chambers, and there was a rally held yesterday in front of the North Sidewalk. What made you vote yes for what they claimed was a wealth transfer to the energy companies?
SB 4 is a very complicated piece of legislation, and it was one of those bills where there were reasons to vote for it. I felt, I can speak only for myself, that there were reasons to vote for it and there were reasons to vote against it. One of the things that I continue to hear is that Missouri has fallen behind on energy production. And, as someone who lives just on the Missouri side of the Kansas-Missouri state line, I understand the risk of having to ask our neighbors for that energy and what that cost is to ratepayers. My view is that our energy rates are in a place where they are likely to go up regardless of the passage of SB 4. And the way I understand the bill and the way I believe the bill will work is that rates will not be raised as much as they would have if we had to go to other states for their energy and pay the additional interest rates.
Additionally, there were changes to the floor debate rules earlier this year at the beginning of session. Have you felt that those have hindered your party's ability to debate on the floor?
Yes, absolutely. We saw today on third read that our members got cut off at the 5-minute mark. It is imperative that in the super minority, our voices are heard. We come in here every single day and lose most of the fights we get in. And the least the majority party could do is listen to our dissent.
So I asked Representative Riley earlier, and his response was that he heard more voices today then we're usually heard because of the change in rules on the topic. So is more voices better than one voice for longer?
You know, the majority floor leader gets to hear as many voices as he chooses to hear. He has full control over what happens in the chamber. And, you know, we're happy to be here all day. We're happy to say our piece all day long. But if they want to cut off debate, if they've got places to be, they've got tea times to make, that's on them. That's their choice. Anything else? All right. Thanks, y'all. Have a good weekend.